Okay, welcome to today's book review. Today I am reviewing Loretto, which is a book by Gabriel Maestas, and it's got a nice cover. One thing I'm not sure if the camera's picking up here is there's actually like a faint, I'm not sure if I can get it on the lighting here. It's actually like an outline of a chapel. It's kind of a very light color on the cover. I'm not sure it's really coming through though on the camera, but it's actually like a chapel here in the background. Anyway, thought I'd point that out. But anyway, let's see. I got my checklist here, and I've got some notes. So let's see. Okay, so as I mentioned, written by Gabriel Maestas. It's 118 pages long. It's a novella. It was published on December 2nd of 2025. The genre is Western genre, also coming of age and kind of religious themed. I don't think there's an age limit or an age recommendation, an age range set on the book. I'm guessing teenagers is probably okay. There is a little bit of like a gunfight at the beginning with some violence. Outside of that, I don't think there's anything too unsettling in the story. It's mostly just that gunfight at the beginning that would make me think that maybe a teenager or older would probably be appropriate. But I'm just guessing. I'm not really an expert in that particular topic. Anyway, let's see. The setting. Okay, so just like with The Healing Pool, which is another novella written by Gabriel, it's set in New Mexico, but it's also takes place somewhat in Los Angeles, California during the 1992 riots. Much like The Healing Pool, there's multiple timelines though. So in New Mexico, there's a plot line that takes place in 1873, and the other plot line is 1992, and they both converge at the same place, a chapel, the Loretto Chapel in New Mexico, Santa Fe, New Mexico, that is, and just in different times, one 1873 and one in 1992, and so that's the setting, or rather settings, I guess I could say, because there's multiple ones. And let's see, characters. So in the 1873 timeline, there's May, which I assume is the girl here on the cover, from the description and such. And there's also a guy named Bill, who is kind of a villain, I guess you could say. And then there's two nuns. One is Mother Cora, the other is Sister Leona. And then there's a marshal named Amos. And in the 1992 plot line, there's a character named Jessica, and then her boyfriend Joseph, and then Jessica, and they have two children. One is Little Joseph, and the other is Ashley, although sometimes she's called Ash. And so those are the primary characters. And in both cases, the characters of May and Joseph have, I guess you could say, somewhat troubled pasts, but they're both very clearly trying to improve their situation, and they're both trying to find the right path. I guess that's really more themes, though, so I'll get to that shortly. Okay, so for the plot, the basis for this is really sort of like there was an episode of Unsolved Mysteries a long time ago about what's called the Miracle Stair, or the Miracle Stairway, I guess. In this chapel in Loretto, there's actually this stairway that was built, and they don't really know who the carpenter was. They don't really remember. Some guy just showed up one day and just put it together with wood that they don't know where he got it from or how it was constructed. But there's a stairway there that's built without any sort of central support column. It's just supported by the railway itself, like the railings that is around it. It's actually like a marvelous design. I don't know how it was actually built. There's been people who have guessed how it was built, but it's kind of miraculous that it works somehow. And it's really just sort of it's an unsolved mystery, and that's literally why it ended up on the show. But it's also kind of a miracle in a way, and I think that's why some people have been going to that chapel for, I think it's, over 100 years now, just to see that particular stairway, and it's quite fascinating. I always found that interesting, because they don't know who the carpenter was, but I think Jesus was a carpenter. Let's see here. In the Old West timeline, there's sort of a treasure that's being fought over, and in the 1992 plot line, Joe has what seems to be some sort of organized crime ties that he's trying to escape from. Move on to themes. So I think one of the themes here is the notion that the past kind of catches up with people, and that faith and devotion are sort of a doorway out of it, that you need to choose the right path, and that miracles are possible when you do. And I like the idea that there's like a macrocosm of the stairway being built, and that's sort of like a, again, a macrocosm or a backdrop, and then the foreground or the microcosm is really May and Joseph each choosing to sort of find the path that leads them out of the current trouble that they're in and into a better life. And I think that's actually like a really interesting theme that Gabriel explored here. Because originally, like when it starts out, one of the nuns is trying to get to this loft in the church, and there's an unsteady stair. Or no, I'm sorry, there's a ladder that she's using that's really unsteady, and she almost falls. And I really thought that was like an allegory of what May and Joseph were doing initially. They're trying to make a good life, but they're getting pulled into, bad things. And much in the way that you can't build a good life that way, you can't at the same time, reach the loft safely by using an unsteady ladder. You need an actual stairway. You need that miracle. And tying that into their faith, I thought that was a kind of a genius move there on Gabriel's part. One thing I mentioned on my Substack article was the idea that this kind of reminds me of the story of Jesus feeding the multitude with like the loaves and the fishes, and that he worked with what he had. And I think the carpenter here is doing something similar, working under the conditions, building a stairway with not many materials in like a very tight area where you can't build a large staircase. And that to me seemed like an interesting analogy or allegory. I guess that's really all I had for themes. Let's see what's next. Inside the author studio. So Gabriel has a thing here on the back about he's a writer from New Mexico, and he also wrote The Healing Pool, and he writes a lot of horror books as well. And he's on Substack. He's also has like a fitness Substack that's separate from his writing Substack. And I don't know much else to say. Of course, I see him on Substack like every day basically, but I'm actually at a loss for words. Sorry. Let's see. So for critique, I don't have much here in the way of a critique. It's a short book. It's an easy read. It's fast. It's if you like the genre of westerns, faith, and there's a little bit of action again at the beginning, which I thought was kind of interesting. The only thing that I was kind of curious about is at one point in time he does mention like an early '90s cell phone, and I wish there was more of a description there, because I remember growing up in the 90s, especially the early 90s, cell phones were just becoming a thing. And my friend's mom, actually, she ran like a business where she was like a consultant, and she had to like be available on the phone at all times. And she had, I think it was a Motorola, like one of those old, really big phones. And it was so ancient that it actually had like a small, what looked like a satellite dish or an antenna or something that she had to use with it. And I also remember, like, slightly later on in the 90s, I think she and some other folks had, like, what was commonly called, like, the brick phone, which was, like, the giant brick-sized phone. Those things were, like... I remember she had one of those, and she made a phone call, and she gave me the phone afterwards and said, just touch this. And, like, the battery on it had gotten, like, really, really hot to the point that, like, it wasn't enough to burn you, but it was pretty close. And I was like, dang, like, that thing is ridiculous. It's those early 90s phones, I think they're very different from what young people today would imagine they are, just because technology has come such a far way. And I kind of wish there was more there, because I think you just can't really understand what it was like back then. Just from saying it's a cell phone, you might be like, oh, well, is it like a flip phone from The Matrix from 1999? And it's like, no, they did not have those in 92. That took a little bit more technology and development, but I guess it's admittedly a pretty small detail, though. It's really not a huge deal. But anyway, I guess that's really all I have for today. So it's a good book. I like the novella format, where it's like, with just not a lot of pages, a pretty good theme can be explored pretty well, pretty quickly. And, I like that. It's very refreshing. So anyway, the book is called Loretto. It's by Gabriel Maestas. I'll put a link to where you can buy it on Amazon in the description of this video. And other than that, I guess that's all I have for today for this particular book. So Have a good one, and I'll see you next time.